welcome to another edition of Tarot Tuesday on Six Silver Seals. Today is the 28th of July, 2020, and let's just dive right in. We have a really interesting aspect in that it's kind of it's got both poignance and subtlety to it, because we have two retrograde planets in Jupiter, represented by the Wheel of Fortune, and Neptune, represented by the Hanged Man, in a sextile. So what we're experiencing here is sort of this especially since Jupiter is in Capricorn, which is the devil, what we're sort of feeling is as though we are going through a paradigm shift, because we also have Pisces, which is the moon in tarot, and that's where Neptune is. And so it's sort of this thing where it's kind of a paradigm shift. There's somewhere in our lives, there's been an area maybe where everything felt like it was slowing down or going backwards or otherwise becoming negative somehow. And a lot of that was because we were locked into a particular perspective and couldn't get out of it. With the moon here, with Neptune, the Hangman reversed in the moon, though, what we're starting to get at is that we're beginning to come to a realization that we were only considering the issue, whatever it may be, from a particular standpoint. A wider lens offers a broader view. And up until now, because of the nature of whatever the struggle was, we were very zoomed into it. That would be the influence of Capricorn as the devil. So we're kind of getting... Now, don't get me wrong. This is just a sextile. The wool is not being pulled off of our eyes, but we're being nudged to notice that we're like under a blanket. The thing about a gentle nudge, though, is that it depends on whether or not you're balanced well when you get it. For some people, a gentle nudge is easy to weather, and the change is easy to make. For others, what starts as a gentle nudge may be the thing that finally knocks them over. So, treat this with caution, but again, the thing to do, say you fall out of a moving car, the thing to do is lean into the fall, is to tuck and roll. Or so I'm told. I have no actual expertise with this. Please do not mistake me for an expert, but the idea of leaning into the fall in order to cushion the blow. But again, like I say, sextile, likely very minor. You would probably want to see Jupiter or Neptune in your chart with adverse aspects both to each other and other planets before you started to worry. And even then, it does seem like this will be fairly limited in scope to just whatever house Jupiter is moving through. So, without further ado, let's get to these cards. The sun is officially in Leo now, so we'll start with the Lions and work our way around the zodiac. Trying to see what the wisdom for the week will be. In light of the fact that we're going to be grappling with some interesting truths about the way we look at the world. So, for Leo, we have the Four of Pentacles upright. Well, they're all going to be upright. You guys know by now that I don't read reversals. So, with the Four of Pentacles, Leo, safety is sort of the concern here for you with this sort of unfolding revelation that is coming from Jupiter and Neptune getting together. And it is something over which you feel quite protective. You had to, whatever it is, you had to eke it out in order to get it, and you're sort of like struggling with the notion of having to give it up. which the vibe I'm getting from this is that that's not a concern that you need to be having. Um, Considering things from a new perspective does not mean letting go of all that you are. It's just about letting go of a single frame of mind. Sometimes it is just a single frame of mind. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, Leo. You can relax. For Virgo, we have the Seven of Wands. You do like to see it. It's got a victorious feel to it. There's a sense in which one has won the day. But something about this is telling me that you should be cautious about assuming with an overly self-generous eye the boundaries of where you have the high ground. Like being careful to take stock of exactly how much of an advantage that affords you and exactly where it does so. Very much the vibe I'm getting from this is a warning about overconfidence. Now, having said that, it is all right to be confident. Just again, this is going to be a very focused thing, and you should try not to let it bleed over into other areas of your life. For Libra, we have the Knight of Cups. I love the artwork on this card because, like, I see the guy, the knight with the chalice and the fish, and all I can hear is him screaming "dilly dilly" as he comes up out of the water, like the stupid commercials. And but he is. This is again. He's the bringer of good news and good times. What I think for you, Libra, what this feels like is a message that this is going to be something that turns out okay. Especially since it's the Knight of Cups, who's one of the slower moving knights. This is probably a feeling of relief that's been long in coming. Whatever is happening, you've been working towards it for quite some time, and now you're practically there, or you will be soon, and you get to start celebrating it. No, that's the thing about the Knight of Cups, though, is that he comes a little bit slower, so this may take time to develop. If you work a typical, 9 to 5, maybe save the celebration for Friday. Rather than, early on in our weird split of a week. For Scorpio is the Seven of Swords. And what I'm getting from this card, Scorpio, is that it's not so much a question of what was stolen from you as who the thief was. The very strong vibe that I get from this Seven of Swords is that something that is missing from your world is something that you have deprived yourself of. And it is time to stop doing that. It very much feels like a vibe to me of like leave well enough alone. It's not going to hurt anybody but you. Just kind of the general vibe of this card. I'm looking for more to say, and there really isn't much. For Sagittarius, we have the Three of Wands. There's an energy in this card, Sagittarius, that I'm picking up on that it's almost like, imagine you're a knight, right, on like one of the fantasy medieval knights off to slay a dragon, and you go to leave, and right as you're riding out of the castle gates, your squire comes riding up to you with a notice from the king's spy master or whomever that they know where the dragon's lair is, and you don't have to hunt for it. You can just go straight to the dragon. This is that kind of thing. It feels a lot like the start of the Fool's Adventure, but you're going in with knowledge ahead of time and able to prepare ahead of time for the thing that you're doing. It may be that whatever is changing as a result of Jupiter and Neptune getting together, you already saw coming. And to some degree, psychic or no. Although, as I'm sure that you're well aware, I think I've said it before, everyone is a little bit psychic, to my way of thinking. But I'm not here to stand on a soapbox. I'm here to read tarot cards. We have Capricorn next. And you have the High Priestess. For you, this takes on a much more personal note. And that makes sense since Jupiter is probably transiting over your sun, or pretty close to it right now. There's a something deep within the self is feeling this nudge, this shift, this change. And you are coming to, a kind of a different understanding of yourself as a person. Being honest about what your internal processes are like. Things you didn't think bothered you that do, or that don't bother you that you thought did. It can go either way. The High Priestess, not for nothing, is between these pillars, and so therefore between extremes, but also shares space with the moon, which is fluid and changing. You are learning that you are not as set in stone as maybe your sun sign would have you believe. And that's a good thing. It may be a little bit uncomfortable, but in the way of, trying to stretch a muscle like your leg when it's fallen asleep. It prickles, but it's... Again, now that you know you can move it, the more you do, the sooner it will stop feeling that way. Because, like I say all the time, astrology is participatory. For Aquarius, we have the Ten of Cups. And this card does indicate a joyful period to me. But also kind of this definitely feels to me like a learning to be happy where you're at sort of thing, Aquarius. Again, finally seeing the silver lining maybe, or learning that there was something to appreciate after all where you didn't think there was. Again, it feels at once both expansive and limited because it's a dramatic shift, but in such a narrow focus. Which is pretty typical for a Jupiter retrograde aspect. For Pisces, we have the Hermit. And I love this Hermit. I like the way you see him sheltering the candle flame against the wind as he wanders alone in the night. What you are learning, Pisces, is that periods of aloneness are okay, provided that you grow from them. You're all right with being alone as long as it has a lesson to teach you. And that's a healthy attitude to have. That's not a bad thing. It is okay to need alone time. Only by sitting with our thoughts can we integrate them. For Aries, we have the Ace of Cups. And not just because it's my sun sign am I happy to see this card. There's a very grand feeling of kind of renewed joy and renewed hope. The feeling that one's emotional cup runneth over. It feels happy. Although this is not, it doesn't feel like the beginning that aces normally indicate. There's something, or it is a beginning, but there's something about this that feels not novel. Like this is a new beginning, but it is also a restart, if that makes sense. For Taurus, we have Judgment. And the art on this card is just wild. This is a trial by fire. And you did not necessarily think that it was going to be. What this indicates to me is that you're about to undergo a stress test, for lack of any other way of putting it, so that I can say something instead of sitting here in silence. But you are hot iron on the anvil, and you are being hammered into shape so that you can be quenched, sturdy, or steel, whichever metal, doesn't matter. But you are a hot iron in the fire, so to speak, and this is where you get shaped. This is where you take your edge and your strength from. And again, the whole thing about that is that that's the surprise, is that it means so much. You may not even experience it as a terribly trying or difficult ordeal. But you're going to look back and recognize that this was the moment where, you know, something about this was transformative for you. Something about this stiffened your spine and honed your edge. For Gemini, we have the Three of Cups. And this definitely feels to me like a positive shift in group associations. Like, it feels to me as though you're going to find that you were not on the outs in a group of people in the way like that you thought you were. And that you actually get a chance to step towards the inward area of the circle if you want to. The way is kind of open for this, it feels like, but you're definitely not as fringe, especially since it feels like it's something you care about quite a bit. You're not as far to the outside of this as you think you are, and if you wanted to be further in the middle, you could do it without too much effort. You're wanted in the middle, or closer to the middle. So for Cancer, we have the Page of Swords, and That claymore is comically huge for the size of the page. That sword's got to be as big as they are. But either way, it feels to me like there was a question you were or maybe are afraid to ask. Um, Something that perhaps you don't necessarily feel like you really want to know the answer to, although you are curious about it. Um, and like that's the thing about it being a claymore, is that this is something. It's not just a. This isn't superfluous. This question doesn't mean nothing. This thing you want to know goes deep. Um, it shakes up some fundamental thought or belief that you have. Um, and you're not sure if you can. You will ask the question, you will get the answer, and then you will wonder if it's actually something you can grapple with or not. Ultimately, I think that you can, but because of the nature of the planets involved, which are Jupiter and Neptune, two of the slower moving ones, this is probably something that's going to take you time to integrate. Maybe until one or both of these planets goes direct. Um, but in the meantime, if you want to get better with it, you might as well pick it up and practice with it. But in any event, that is Tarot Tuesday for this week. I sincerely hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember that if you're a patron, you saw this on Monday night. You should actually go check out Six Silver Seals on Patreon. I do lots of cool stuff over there. But in the meantime, be good to yourselves and to one another, and I will see you next week.